Okay. I am recording. I think we're good to go.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Joe. Welcome everybody to this second in the series of these Success Formula Masterclasses with me, Guy Griffiths. My company is GG Fit, and I've studied retention strategy for the last 14 years, helping lots of different clubs from small independents to large public chains and trusts, budget gyms as well, and private clubs. And we help people to get their members to stick around longer. In a nutshell, we work on retention analysis, so analysis of CRM systems like Clubwise, but not just Clubwise. We do coaching and training and strategy sessions with staff, so getting people up to speed with education and training on how to get people to stick around longer. And the third part of what we do at GG Fit is sending out member communications. We're going to be talking about that a bit today. So really pleased to be invited to present these masterclasses with Clubwise. Jo is here with us today. Hi, Jo. She's on mute at the moment.
Yeah, I've just taken myself off mute, but yes, welcome everybody. Thank you for attending. Very excited about this, the next session in this series.
Yeah, so a big thanks to Clubwise. I will say it again at the end, I'm sure, but yeah, basically for making this free for everyone to be able to attend, so that you can help your members to stick around longer. The secret to retention, I did say this last week, but it's not that you have to work hard with every member in your club. You don't. But one of the problems that I see at a lot of clubs is that you and your staff are probably working hard on the wrong kinds of member. And this is what we went through a little bit last week. I'll just do a quick recap on this engage part for you. You can go back and watch this. It's available on the Clubwise YouTube channel. But we talked for 45 minutes or so on engaging with members, on really growing that green part of the pie and making all of your members active. If you get that part right, and I said this last week, if you get the engagement part right, you don't need to work so hard on recovering and even on attracting new members. So get things like welcome appointments, get more members into classes, get more members into challenges, and do reviews and health checks. And really, you won't have too many dormant members. So the E for engage, that was the first part of our new era for health clubs. Today, we're going to look at the recovery phase. So although we covered engage last week, there inevitably will be some members who need recovering at some point. And we've actually learned a lot about member recovery throughout the pandemic, as we've been freezing memberships or suspending memberships and trying to get members back into clubs. So really, there's a lot of stuff that we've learned and tried and tested as we've come out of lockdowns in the various stages at various clients around the world. So in terms of R for recovery, this second masterclass in this series, what we're going to look at today, our two missions, if you like, are to catch members before they leave, and also to find out why they're leaving. So these two kind of factors here are going to be what we're going to run through. I'm just going to jump into this pie chart again and talk about active members. So active members, as we covered last week, really are typically around 60% at most clubs. So at a 1,000 member club, you have around 600 members who are active. Those are people who have visited in the last 21 days, or for some clubs, the last 30 days. So members who visited in the last month are what we call active. If they have visited in maybe the last 45 or the last 60 days, but not in the last 30, then we say they are in recovery mode. So the recovery members, this window of members who visited in this example, so between 21 and 45 days ago, those are the people that we're working hard on trying to bring back into the active fold. So we're going to be sending them communications, we're going to be calling them up, we're going to be saying that we missed them, trying to get them and those members back. It varies from club to club, and we often have a debate or even an argument with club owners about what is active. Maybe it is 30 days, not 21 days. Maybe we take that recovery phase all the way up to 60 days. One of our clients, actually, we go all the way up to 75 days, trying to contact members, not on the 75th day. We contact them on the 24th and the 30th and the 36th and the 45th. But I'm going to run through these this afternoon or evening as we go through. Members who are dormant, we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So dormant members, we may still try and get them back. The point here is when we do bring them back, we probably bring them back into the new member fold rather than just back in as an active member. So we might give them some kind of welcome session, or we might get them on the 0 to hero challenge that we talked about last week as they come back in. So this is what we're going to cover, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions if you're on the live call here. If you've got any questions or comments, then please do drop them into the chat as we go through. If I don't pick them up, hopefully Jo will, and she'll interrupt me if they're relevant, or if not, I will come to them at the end. So don't save your questions till the end. Please drop them in the chat. I'll answer them as we go through. But we've got around 45 minutes, 40 minutes or so left on plan to run through this these two missions of catching members before they leave and finding out why they're leaving. So I'm going to run through three areas, as I often do in my presentations. First of all, just to kind of tee things up, I'm going to talk about contact options because this is really important. Then we're going to spend probably 15 minutes or so on the absentee process and 15 minutes or so on learning from our leavers. Okay, so those are the two kind of meaty parts of the presentation. But first of all, it's really important that we get good contact details from our members. Okay, we need to sell retention as they join. No member joins thinking I'm going to want to leave in 2 or 3 months' time. They all join with good intentions, but we still have to work hard at getting their contact details right. The reason for that is, as we were talking about last week, engagement. Engagement when they are joining, when they're a new member, so that we can get the most out of them and make sure they are really engaged in the first part of their new member journey. Engagement when they're an active member, to get them into challenges, to get them coming back to classes. And then finally, if we're going to try and recover them, we need engagement there as well. So engagement, engagement, engagement. That's why we need the right contact details and the best contact details for all of our members. So to go into the detail there, let's think about what is the journey and why members are giving us their contact details. Let's talk about what details we're going to work with, and then let's talk about some testing that is a really, really good idea to do and will improve your data collection rates. So the best contact details. How do we get the correct email address or the correct phone number for every member as they join? We need to talk to them about what we're going to do for them, how we're going to contact them and send them things like welcome messages, or get them into classes, or what we're going to do to book them into their program review, for example. All these communications that we're going to send out to them are about motivation. So we're going to be motivating these members, and this is what they want as they join. Most members will want some motivation, will want some accountability. So it's important that we get them to give us their primary email address, for example, and the correct mobile phone number so that we can be in touch with them. We might also tell them that they're going to get some vouchers, not necessarily special offers, but there's a refer a friend voucher, hopefully, or some kind of token that you'll be sending them that allows them to bring a friend along to train with them. The reason we're doing that is because they'll visit more often and stay longer if they're training with a friend. Of course, the secondary objective is we might get another sale from it, but the main reason we're doing it is to care for and look after this new member and to send them news, tell them about things like challenges and clubs that are useful to them and are going to help motivate them. So, and the big one, I guess, is, if they become absent, we want to get in touch with them. So for an absent member, most new members don't think they're going to become absent, but a lot of them do at some point. So we want to be able to contact them. And the big thing here, and I hear this quite often, particularly at new customers that I'm working with, a receptionist or even an instructor or a salesperson will say, give us your best details because we send you lots of offers. And that's one of the ways of getting a bad email address, either an incorrect one or the Hotmail address that they don't really use anymore. So we're not about sending people offers or promotions or things like that. All the reasons we want their contact details are to motivate them and to keep them coming to the club. So it's not about offers, it's about motivation. Yes, thank you, Joe. If you do have any questions, drop them in the chat. Just checking that to see, just to make you aware I'm looking at the chat. So build that journey up, understand what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be communicating with your members. I'll give you some ideas in a moment, but it's really important that you get the best contact details for them. The type of details you want are primarily email, phone number, ideally a mobile, possibly an other phone number as well. But mobile is really good because, as we know, you can text people or send people an SMS. It's also good, and not many people use this anymore, but it is also good for actually calling people up and speaking to them. And finally, an address, a little bit old-fashioned, and a lot of budget chains or people who join online don't require an address anymore, but we do find it very useful, particularly for recovering members, as I'll tell you in a few minutes. So email, good for news and general communications, although bear in mind that in the health and fitness industry, the average open rate for an email, according to MailChimp, is around or just below 20%. So for every 5 emails you send out, on average, 1 will get read. Sorry, 1 will get opened, not read. So yeah, 20 out of 100 emails will actually get read. Which is a staggering statistic. You can improve that, and we get much better open rates than that with good subject lines and by sending engaging content regularly. But even good open rates are only around 30, 40, maybe 50%. So that's why a mobile phone number is really important as well, getting the correct mobile phone number for things like urgent messages, reminders, or, as I say, just picking up the phone and actually speaking to a member, finding out how they're going. And then an address is great for backup if all else fails, or special communications. If you want to send out birthday cards, it really means a lot to a lot of members. A couple of our clients send birthday cards out to members, and it's one of the biggest complaints is when someone doesn't get a birthday card. I'll try and remember to explain how or why as we get to that. You might ask, or you might be thinking about your app, or thinking about contacting people through social, through Facebook or Messenger. All those methods are fine. The thing with apps generally are used for push notifications, for new classes, or for promotions. So it is much more about marketing generally, rather than a specific segment of people who haven't visited for 21 days, say. So if you've got an app that will do that kind of thing, then that's great. But we find that generally email, text message, letters, phone calls are much better in terms of segmenting and sending specific comms to specific people from your database. Socials are also good. I mean, there is some interesting stuff going on with WhatsApp Business, but it's primarily used for either specialist groups or clubs within clubs, rather than a segment of your database that you want to send a specific communication to. I have seen people called out on CrossFit social groups for not being there. We've not seen Jo for 2 weeks. What's gone wrong? Is she AWOL? How do we get her back? That works very well for that type of club, but only if everyone has liked the Facebook page and or is in that particular group. So primarily email, phone, and address. And if you're getting those contact details for your members as they join, then you're doing really well. The next thing is to test and make sure the contact details you're getting are correct. So a welcome email. We talked about welcome sessions last week. Welcome emails are really good. They're just a nice thing to send out, mainly because a lot of people who join will maybe be listening to the spiel and the pitch, which your salesperson or your receptionist or whoever has done 100 times, but they're not necessarily taking it all in about how to book a class, about downloading the app, about what they need for the changing room lockers, things like that. So it's good to send a welcome email to just summarize all that information for them. And also to say, thanks very much for joining. Thanks for your business. It's important to say thank you, right? Clubs that send welcome emails out find that up to 10% or sometimes more in bad situations of those emails bounce. There's a couple of different types, well, there's lots of different types of bounce. Primarily a soft bounce is something like out of office or mailbox full, something like that. Whereas a hard bounce is this email doesn't exist. And when you're getting hard bounces, if you're having 10% of your welcome emails that are sent are hard bouncing, it's because your contact details have been put in wrong. There's two reasons why that'll happen. Either it was an input error, what we sometimes call fat fingers. So the instructor or the receptionist or even the member has typed in their email wrong, or it may be a member mistake. It could be an honest mistake or a deliberate mistake. If you've told them that you'll send them lots of offers, they might have made a mistake giving you their email address. Either way, you're on a bit of a loss here already, because if they go absent in the future, you're not going to be able to contact them by email. So it's really important to get the correct email. Either flag them in your CRM system, and next time they're in, hopefully a little red light will come up and you can ask them to correct their email address. Or failing that, it's a great opportunity to call them up and ask them what their correct email is. Clubs that miss out on this will miss out on retention further down the line. So the bounce report, having a look at that each week or maybe each month, and going through and correcting emails that are bouncing, not just for new members, but for existing members as well, as people's email address will change as they move jobs. There's a lot of that going on at the moment. Really important to just knuckle down and focus on this and make sure your email data is good, because otherwise you're going to get even lower than a 20% open rate on your emails. A 7-day call is another great service thing to do, but also a reason to check up and find out if the member answers your phone calls for a start, but you're checking if their mobile's right. That's not actually why you're doing it, but it just opens that line of communication, and they might recognize the number of the gym and they might answer it and understand. 7-day call it's a really nice service offer, and it's a great way of improving engagement. I didn't really go into it last week, but it's something that's just a great idea to do. 7 days or so after a member joins, maybe the salesperson, maybe the instructor, whoever knows the member best and is building up the best rapport with them should make a 7-day call. And then finally, the other suggestion is, again, if you've called them, you know their mobile number is correct, but it's a really nice idea to send a text at the end of month 1, either a congratulations, you've made 4 visits, or congratulations, you've been a member for a month now, or we often send encourage messages at the end of month 1 for people who've made less than 4 visits. The reason for this is not just to send a text and check the mobile number's working. You've probably done that on the 7-day call, but it's also the first text message they'll get from the club. And if that is a nice, fist bump, handshake, high five, congratulatory message, that makes the next message that we might send, which could be, we miss you, where have you been? Which might be a bit more of a negative message. That's not the first message they're getting, that negative, you've not been using the club in as many words message. So opening up the text message communication account with a high five, congratulations, you've been a member for a month now, is a much nicer thing to do. And sending out regular congratulation messages throughout the year to certain members is also good, because it intersperses, as I say, the negative we miss you messages, which we're going to get onto in a moment. So check the contact details are correct. Do some tests. Don't just collect details and go, brilliant, we've got lots of data. Do collect as much data as you can, but then test as much of it as you can as well. It's a very simple process to do. It shows great customer service, and it means further down the line, you won't be open to errors. So accurate data is absolutely critical for success. Record it well, but with the best will in the world, that there will be human error. So if you test it, you'll get more success, both for your club and for your members as well. So that's my little intro into getting contact options and getting contact details right. If there's any questions, then please drop them in the chat as we go through. I'll be asking you a couple otherwise. The next part is talking about the absentee process. So we're now going to be talking about catching members before they leave. So let's jump into this. The absentee process, the classic, understanding when members are at high risk. Maybe they're still visiting, but they're at high risk. They've come up as a red or an amber in your CRM system, something like Clubwise, and recognizing that. But once people become absent, really they're now high risk, and we need to do something about it. If you're a club with ethics, and there are many more of you now, you need to get absentees back. The classic model of let's get loads and loads of members and hope none of them visit, it's not a good business model. There's still a few clubs out there like that, but really you need to take care of as many members as possible, and as soon as members start to become absent, you need to try and get them back. So this works much better if you have already engaged with your members. If they joined 6 months ago and haven't heard from you since, and they've suddenly become absent, you're going to struggle to get them back. So if you want more on that and you missed last week's masterclass, jump on YouTube, go and have a look at it and find out how to make sure all your new members and all your active members are really well engaged, because then this part will work better. I'm going to talk about the window, the kind of sand running out timer, if you like, of an absent member. We're then going to talk about some different channels, and I'm going to go through some results as well. Question there from Murta. We have 6 automated emails and 4 texts going out to new members over the first 40 days. Is this too many? It sounds like a lot, but I wouldn't say it's too many. It's something we can pick up on later if you want, Murta. I know we had a little email conversation off the back of the last webinar. But in terms of, I would like to see what the content is. I've worked with people that send more than 10 over the first couple of months. I think one was like 12 or even 18 communications. That was a bit much, but I would also want to look at the reports and see what the open rates, what the click rates and things like that are, to find out to find out if it is too much. We can come back onto that later if you wish in more detail. Let's go and have a look at this window of opportunity in terms of these absent members coming in. So first of all, and linked to that question, I think a little bit, how many attempts are you going to make to get an absent member back? I'll take some numbers, I'll take some answers on the comments if you wish, either in the chat or the Q&A. How many attempts would you make to get members back into the club? A little pause and a drink. There's no right answer to this, but a lot of clubs will give a wrong answer, which is either 0 or 1. The answer, as far as I'm concerned, how many attempts, as long as it is more than 1 attempt, then you are right. So if you were thinking of a number that was higher than 1, well done you. If you're sending 1 email to all your members who have gone absent, or if an email gets triggered from your system and sent out to everyone who becomes absent at day 30, you aren't doing enough to try and get members back. 1 email, I mean, bear in mind, if you send 100 of those, probably only 20 of them will get opened. That isn't enough. So you do need more than 1 attempt. The next question in this kind of how section is, when will you contact them? So I've gone into this a little bit in terms of the timescales. I'm going to use an example here of 0 to 21 days of being active. Some clubs will say, well, that's 0 to 30, and that's fine. It also depends on what your budget is for sending these messages out, and how many you want to be sending, and how many members you have, of course, and what resource you have. But the recovery phase here, we're looking at maybe 21 days through to, in the example I had earlier, up to 45. It might be 30 to 60 at your club. And as I say, quite often get into nice heated debates about this. So there's 2 contact points there, 21 days and 45 days. To drop one just in the middle, we could say, well, let's contact them at 33 days as well. That would be a reasonable way. There's 3 contacts there now. They might be different message types. We'll get into that in a moment. but contacting people 3 times through this window to say we're going to try and get them back is perfectly reasonable. I also quite like the concept of saying up to day 21 and then not necessarily exactly 1 week later. We have seen some systems that automate emails out midday every Monday, and it was to a club, quite a big club of fairly savvy members in the city of London, and their attrition actually went up because they were just repeating the same message every Monday. They hadn't configured it very well. But every Monday at midday, a bunch of messages went out saying, we miss you. And yeah, their attrition doubled in the month that they sent those messages. So sending different channels and sending it on different days is good. And then members become dormant after, in this example, 45. So we might stop contacting them then, but we can come back onto that maybe. So I'll just open the questions again. Let me go back to the Prezi. How often do we contact them? Well, that kind of builds into that. I've got the 3 triggers there, maybe at day 21, day 33, and day 45. But how often are we going to run this process? We run the process for a lot of our clients daily. So we're actually sending out a trickle of communications, for a 4,000 member club, we might be sending out 10, 15 text messages a day, and probably the same 10, 12 emails, and maybe a couple of letters, or 1 postcard a day for a 4,000 member club. But that's sending it daily, and that is a very automated process, triggering call lists and things like that. Weekly is a little bit easier, a little bit more manageable, and easier to track as well, as I'll show you in a minute. If you are running that weekly, you might go, look, we're doing these comms on 21 days, and then maybe we send a text at day 21, maybe on day 28 we send an email, maybe on day 35 it's a phone call, maybe on day 42 it's a postcard. So that they're not going to get those, it's not an email out midday every Monday, but it's a weekly process that you're going through, which, as I say, can be a bit easier to implement initially. You can then go on to twice weekly or daily if you wish. So the window is really important in terms of the way that's going to define our recovery strategy in the process. Let's have a little look at the channels as well. So what channels can we use, or would I recommend for sending messages out to members? The first one that we always go to and we always recommend is text messaging. I mentioned earlier that email, we have a 1 in 5 open rate typically in the industry. We do better than that with good subject lines and with good content. But text messages are read, I think it's either 99 or 98% are read within 10 minutes, depending on where you look. Text Anywhere or Global Messaging would say 98, 99% read within 10 minutes. And typically acted upon as well. Great for doing surveys or for re-engaging ex-members, which I'll talk a little bit about next week. Email is very good, very popular, very cheap. Some people think it's free. If you're doing it properly, it shouldn't be free, because you should be using opt-outs and unsubscribes and all those kind of things, even for these service messages. And then finally, we also send a lot of postcards and letters, which is certainly not free. It's very expensive, but it's also quite effective, as you'll see in a moment. So we don't send postcards and letters to everyone. We tend to use it as a backup where text or email has failed. Or if we get to day 45 or even day 75, the day 75 comms that we send are all letters, but it is literally, probably 4 or 5 a week at a 4,000 member club. But it'll get members back or help them, or at least, prolong their membership. And finally, yes, the call. The call has to go in there as well. It is absolutely the best way of getting members back, reaching out to them, calling them on their mobile. A lot of the time you're leaving a message, but call, depending on your resource and your club and your style and everything else, calls are absolutely the most expensive way of doing it. And it depends if you've got the resource for it. So we would often lead on text. And if we can't text someone on day 21, we'll send an email. And if we can't email them, we might send a letter. And then maybe at day 26 or day 30, we would send an email to the people who are still absent. And then we might send a text if we can't email them, or if the email is bounced. we wouldn't repeat another letter. And then maybe at day 36, there might be a call list that is set up. And the effectiveness of these, in terms of the number of members that return within 10 days, we find that around 70% of people who are texted return within 10 days. So it's really good way of getting people to return. Compare that with 66% typically for email, which, considering the open rate on email, that's still pretty good. But that's one of the reasons why we lead on text. It is a bit more effective, and it's worth splashing out a few pence on text messages to get members back. But the real deal is postcards and letters. 76% of members who get a letter or a postcard as their first "we miss you" message come back within 10 days. So it is much more effective. It's also much more expensive, and getting more expensive. I think stamps have just gone up. But if you're even saving a 20, 30 pound membership, or a 70 or 100 pound membership at some of our clients, splashing out on a few stamps for a few members, it really is money well spent, especially when you look at the return rate and track those kind of things. So tracking these comms and understanding what is working for you is really important. It's no good just firing and forgetting. You want to know what's working for you. So in terms of measuring it, if you are doing it daily, I'll be honest, it is more difficult. You do need a good CRM system or even a campaign management system for this kind of thing. So something like Clubwise will help you to measure the comms and to show you what is going out there. Other systems are available, but obviously Clubwise is the one you want to look at first if you're watching this webinar. If you're doing this weekly, it's much easier to measure, and therefore easier for me to explain in 5 minutes rather than spending a whole hour on measuring recovery campaigns. I don't know if anyone would watch that. But here's a quick overview of how you could measure this with either a whiteboard or just a notepad or an Excel spreadsheet, and looking at, from a simple report from a CRM, how many members are absent 21, are absent 28, are absent 35 in a certain week. So the first week in April, for example, we've got 10 members who are absent 21, and we've maybe texted all of them, or maybe we texted 9 of them and sent an email to the 10th because we didn't have their mobile number. There's 6 who are absent 28, they've all got an email, and there's 4 who are absent 35 who maybe you've got a postcard. And then the following week, so all those comms have gone, and the following week we run the same report again, and you can see that the people who now are absent 21, there's 12, so it's a little bit more, but there's only 6 who are absent 28, or only 5 who are absent 28, and 3 who are absent 35. Repeat this through the month of April, and you get this run each week, and you can then look back and say, of the 10 people that were absent in week 1, absent 21, 5 of them were still absent in week 2. So 5 of them therefore have come back. And it's the same, it's actually 50% as well for absent 28. So 6 were absent 28, and in week 2, only 3 of them were absent 35. So we've had a 50% return rate from both of those in weeks from week 1 to week 2. And you can repeat this. It wasn't as successful in week 2. If these were all phone calls and they were being made by a different person in week 2, it could be an anomaly, it could be unlucky, but if person 2 really isn't doing as well at getting members back, maybe they need to buddy up with person 1, or maybe we need to find someone else to do the calls. But measuring this trend as we go forwards and just looking at how many members are absent each week will help to say, look, texts are really working well, or this person making the calls is really effective. And you'll get a feel for it anyway, but measuring some stats is important. In terms of dormant members, there's often a question about this. What do we do with dormant members? Well, you either just say we're going to let the sleeping dogs lie, or in Germany, don't wake the dogs who sleep, is their version of that saying. I'm a much bigger fan of having some kind of adapted newsletter, which has got something about why it would be great to come back, what there is for rehab, maybe just engaging things, the new challenge, the member of the month last month, those kind of bits of news that you can send out, not just to your active members, but something more specific to dormant members. Sending them anniversary messages or not sending them anniversary messages is interesting. The club I mentioned earlier who send out birthday cards, if a member hasn't visited for the last 60 days, we don't send a birthday card. And they will sometimes complain that they've not got their birthday card because it has a voucher in to use it in the lounge. And they need to come in to be able to be eligible for the birthday card. So they need to come in regularly. So it's a way of getting absent members back, slightly convoluted. Ultimately, you're probably going to need to contact them at renewal, or if you're going to put prices up. So at some point, you will need to bite the bullet and contact your dormant members. I believe that it's good to keep them going, to keep them, keep them on the books, if you like, and keep them, communicated to regularly. So a little bit about recovery and the absentee process there. Hopefully, and this is the feedback we got from last week, hopefully there's some simple stuff that you can implement tomorrow in your club. And if you want to build on it more, then you can. There's hopefully lots of tips and tricks in here that you can just take away and use. Or if you really want to get into more detail, then questions as we go through or at the end, or you can reach out to me as well. The point is, catch these absent members while you can. Where we are making calls, or where clubs we're training people to make calls, you're not cold calling these members. These are people that have bought a membership at your club. They want to get fitter and healthier. They're just finding it hard. They're just finding the behavior change part hard, and they need an extra bit of motivation. When I look through the call logs of clubs that we're triggering these calls for them, I see so many thank yous and sorries and it's my fault, but I will be back and I really appreciate your call. Hardly anyone is cancelling off the back of these calls. It's always a fear of clubs that if we call the absentees, they will cancel. But most members that get a call, or most responses we get to texts and to emails, are thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I will be back soon, or I need some help with this, or I don't feel comfortable with that. Please, can you help me? And it's really, it just, every message we get back proves that the process is worth doing. So you're not cold calling, you're not selling double glazing, you are trying to encourage people to do what they want to do and trying to motivate them. There's a piece about automation versus service. I think automation, it is important. It is important to be able to know that messages have gone, to know that people are being contacted, but putting in some customer care in there as well, and having the calls, if you've got the resource, the manpower or person power to be able to do that, then I think it's important that you do. So it's not just a purely automated service. Changing up the messages is also important. Don't be sending out the same "we miss you" message that you sent last month or the month before, because people will yo-yo and they will spot the messages are automated. So that's the absentee process in terms of recovering members. I'd say it's like not used enough in the fitness industry in general. It is one of the reasons why retention is an issue, and the more clubs that can contact their absent members, the better for the industry, the better for the success of your business. So do reach out to people who are absent. They generally won't cancel. 9 out of 10 will be really thankful. And the one that does cancel, if they cancel because you called them, when they're ready to come back and join another gym, they'll come back to you. So let's get on to cancellations and learning from our levers for the last 10 minutes or so of this presentation. There's another balance here. We're talking about learning, but we're talking about saving. So yeah, we want to try and save a few, but if we've got 100 people trying to leave this month, we're not going to save 100 of them. We might save 10 or 20, but there's 100 that we can learn from. Okay, so the learning part is really important. We're going to learn how and why and when members leave. Not necessarily now, but by talking to them and by communicating with them, we're going to find out, when they often leave, why they leave, how they leave as well. So let's get into the how and why first. Then I'll talk a little bit about how we could recover them, because this is all about recovery today. And then another part of measuring, and also what the next steps are, really important. So how and why do members cancel? Most people jump straight to the why. but I really want to think about how members cancel first of all, because this is really important. It would be great if everyone walked in, not everyone, but all your leavers came into the club and talked to you about the reason, or the fact that they want to leave. Or even if some of them rang up and said, look, I'm about to cancel, I want to have a chat about it. In reality, most members at the clubs that we work with or talk to cancel at the bank, because they don't really want to talk to someone. They'll cancel their direct debit and then maybe get into a process of being chased for arrears and all that messy stuff. Some expire, and there's other reasons how people leave as well. But it's important to look at this, look at all the people who left last month from your club or even last year. I know it was a funny year last year, but you can still do this analysis and just have a look and find out how people left. And maybe put a percentage against it and say, look, 50% of the people are cancelling at the bank. What are we going to do? Are we going to focus on them, or are we going to focus more on the people who are coming into the club? Where are there some wins? How often do you measure and monitor people who come into the club? How often do you deal with it? Probably fairly ad hoc. People who email or phone, you might deal with that on a daily basis. The bank might be weekly or bi-weekly, depending on your direct debit run or however else you take payment. But think about the leave methods first of all, because that's one of the things that we're going to use to track leavers. Then we get into the reasons. So whether or not you've got a feedback form or a leavers form or some kind of survey, or whether you just let everyone give you their comments, or you take details down on the phone, you might either have a checkbox that you use or that they use, or that once you've got the comments, you then put it into one of these 6, 7, 4 different reasons. Because again, you can look and find out that if everyone's got a problem with time, what can you do about it? If there's a large number of complaints coming through one month about the changing room or about a particular instructor, that's maybe something you can change and you can do something about. If people have got money problems, that's only going to get worse, I would say, over the next year or two or in the future. How are you dealing with people who've got money problems? And are there things you can do to save them? Or new memberships you should be looking at? More of that next week. And finally, what other information? So you've got your leave method, you've got your leave reasons, and then is there other information you can glean from them? Were they active up until 2 days ago? Were they visiting regularly, or have they been dormant for a while? Goes back to what we were talking about, talking to absent members. What kind of contract are they on? Are there any terms in there that you're going to, they're going to try and wriggle out of? And what other information have you got? So it's important to gather as much of this information for each leaver as you can, whether that, as I say, is through a survey or a leavers form. We've set up some automated processes. People who cancel at the bank, let's direct them to a landing page, which is not necessarily available on your club site, although it might be on your club website. If you want to leave, come here, because we'd rather have more information about you so we can handle it better and track it and learn. Then you get into the recovery process. Okay, so you might just pick a certain amount of those, the ones who come into the club, the ones whose reason is money, and any other extra information you've got. And you then get into this kind of swingometer of, you would like them to stay, they would like to leave. At what point are we going to meet? Are they going to get to leave? This isn't supposed to be a Brexit thing, though it does look a bit like that. Remain or leave. How are we going to get them to to settle this needle somewhere? So what options have we got for someone who is short of money, for example? As I say, it's going to be a popular one over the next few months, years. Have you got a freeze option or a suspend option on the membership? Can you suspend it for a couple of months? Can you add extra value to them? If someone's not getting results in the gym, if that's the reason they want to leave, they're not getting results, can we say, look, if you commit to visiting twice a week, because you maybe have the time at the moment, but you're not getting results, if you commit to visiting twice a week over the next 4 weeks, we will provide £50 worth of personal training to you. Never free personal training, but we will include this and we'll help you get some results over the next 4 weeks if you can visit twice or whatever the pledge is that they go for. Or are there some discount options? So it's important, once you've done the analysis on that last part of how people are leaving and why they're leaving, to then get together and brainstorm some options of ways of saving the majority that are coming through those different channels. What can we do to save people? Are there freezes? Are there extras we can offer? Are there discounts? Can we drop them onto a different kind of membership? Or can we put them on an app-only membership for the next few months, so that we remain engaged with them and they're still a member or a subscriber on some kind of business level with your club. But ultimately, through this conversation and through talking through these options, we are also getting some feedback from this member who's trying to leave. So we're learning from that, okay? We're not going to save them all, but we're going to try and save as many of them as possible, depending on the criteria that you've set out. And by having those conversations, and a lot of them should be, again, conversations either over the phone, or if not, then through some landing page capture forms, surveys, things like this. Let's have a look at the number of attempts to leave you have in a particular month. Let's also look at the number of saves that you have. So if 100 people try to leave, but we get 10 saves, that's amazing. Let's share that information with the whole team. Let's find out how we save the people that were short on money. Let's find out how we save the people who weren't getting results. And let's find out how we save the people who said they were moving away, because that's often a big one. People say they're moving away. They're usually not. They normally just think that's a good one to get out of a contract or to stop any further questions. But knowing how and why people are leaving, knowing what and who is saving them, and getting that feedback will help you to stop future attempts by cleaning the changing rooms, by talking to that particular instructor. And it'll also increase your future saves. And whilst 100 people say are leaving, but 10 are being saved, celebrate the 10. Okay, so know who those 10 are. Make sure everyone in your team knows who the 10 are, because believe me, they're still high risk. Even though you've just saved them and they've maybe just got £50 worth of personal training, you still need to work hard on that member and make sure they don't leave again a month down the line. So next steps for people who do leave. First things first, say thank you to them. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for their business. Thank you for being a member. It goes a really long way. It doesn't have to be a handshake. It might be a fist bump or an elbow bump these days, or it could be an email or a text message. But it's really important to say thanks for your business. You're leaving the door ajar, okay? If you want to leave the door wide open, then offer them a 30-day cooling off period, particularly if you did this when they joined, saying, look, if you change your mind about leaving in the next 30 days, you can come back. I don't know if you have a joining fee or not, but if you do, you could waive that for 30 days. It's just a nice little touch to say, yeah, you may be going to that club up the road, but if you change your mind in the next 30 days, you can come back to us. We will welcome you back. Of course you would. Message all your leavers. Going back to Marta's question, message them lots of times. Say thank you the day after they join. Tell them about their cooling off period. Even if you did it over the phone yesterday, do it again today. Send them a feedback survey a week later. Ask them, what they're up to now. Don't so much focus on why they left, although you can get some more honest answers a week later. Send them a reminder at 1 month that their cooling off period is about to finish, and then nudge them, survey them, contact them monthly or quarterly at the very least. We get some great information from ex-member surveys. You don't always have to tell them they're going to get a voucher or a code or something else by filling in the survey, but when they do complete the little survey, 3 questions, 4 questions, and then they get a little prize afterwards, or a join 3 months for the price of 6 code, something like that. It really goes a long way, and you will get members back that way. So measurement and next steps in terms of learning from leavers. Basically, what brings them back, and also what do they do next? just finding out what your ex-members are doing now. If they really are joining the budget, if there's lots of them joining the budget club up the road, then you maybe need to have a hard look at that and work out how you differentiate or what your USPs are a little bit more and sell it to your existing members. There's lots to learn from trying to save your members. You won't save them all, but you should be able to learn from many of them. That's the recovery phase, if you like. That's this 45-minute, well, 46-minute now masterclass. Key learnings here: get your members back when they become absent. So you should be working really hard on getting recovery or even dormant members back into the club. Do everything in your power to get them back, because otherwise the next step is they'll leave. So send out SOS messages by SMS, and then save as many leavers as you can, but learn from all of your leavers if you can. If you have any questions, then I will happily take them now in the Q&A or in the chat. But as I said last week, I'm always keen to hear from people. If you want to reach out on the socials, you can find me at GGFit. LinkedIn's probably my favorite social media channel, but I'm on Twitter and on Facebook as well at GGFit. And if you've got a quick question that you don't want to ask now, or even a longer question, then do please feel free to drop me an email to guy@ggfit.com. Just super quickly, next week we're going to look at attracting new members. So just like a super quick preview, we're going to look at building new foundations, supporting health and fitness, and expanding your services. So we'll look at new services and offerings. We'll talk about health seekers a little bit, which I have done on a previous Clubwise webinar, and how we add on and expand to those. But I won't get into that now. Yes, I'll leave it at that for any other questions, or to check with Jo if there's anything she's thought of that she wants to ask me.
Take myself off mute. No, I think you've covered some really good, valuable stuff there, guys. So thank you very much. And yes, I mean there will be a full recording going out tomorrow to everybody that registered, so you can watch it back in your own time. And you'll also get a reminder for the third and final session next Tuesday. So yeah, be sure to look out for that.
Perfect. So yes, so same time next week. I will see you here for the final masterclass. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your questions as we went through. And as I said at the start, a massive thank you to Clubwise for sponsoring this and for making it free to you all.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Guy.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.